Part 55. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 541. Hongyu was angry. Now that you have changed your ways, can you act like a pretty girl? Duan Muguiu ignored him. The sky quickly turned dark, and she went to Changming Palace. Duan Muguiu wants to see you. Chu Qinghuang's eyebrows moved slightly, roughly guessing something. Let her come in. Seeing this woman's face again, Fukang was able to face it calmly. He only glanced at her briefly and then quickly looked away. This woman once left a deep shadow in his heart. Fortunately, he has been growing up over the years, overcoming his inferiority complex, losing his cowardice, and learning to be calm and calm. Everything in the past can pass away like a cloud and a breeze. I'm here to say goodbye to you. Duan Muguiu stood in the outer hall, looking at Chu Qinghuang calmly, looking at the face that belonged to him in front of him, and he felt as if he was looking in the mirror. Tomorrow morning, get me a carriage. You want to leave? Chu Qinghuang asked lightly. Where are you going? Walking around and looking at the scenery, Duan Muguiu said calmly. After His Majesty abdicated, didn't he also travel around the world with his concubines? Chu Qinghuang frowned. The Supreme Emperor travels all over the world and is protected by experts. And to be honest, even if no one protects them, they are much safer than you. After all, Duan Muguiu's appearance is so eye-catching, it would be strange if he didn't attract people's attention. Duan Muguiu was silent for a moment. These are things that don't need to be considered. Life is unpredictable. No one knows when the accident will come. After a pause, and I have the ability to protect myself, so I'm not as useless as you think. It is true that her body is weak, but she has been diligently recuperating over the past 2 years. Although it is not as good as her previous body, it is not so weak that she will die at any time. As for self-protection, she is good at using poison, which is more than enough to protect herself under normal circumstances. If she encounters a special situation, it is destined to be her fate and she cannot force it. Fukang stood beside Chu Qinghuang, silent. Your Majesty, Lord Hongyu wishes to see you. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. Let him come in. Hongyu quickly walked in and bowed. Your Majesty, I'm here to say goodbye. You want to say goodbye too? Yes. Hongyu frowned, looking unwilling. Although I quite like staying in Qintian prison, the red line assigned to me by Yu Lao is too overestimating and needs someone to protect me. How could he, a kind-hearted little fairy, just watch someone fall into danger? Chu Qinghuang's mouth twitched, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. She can't even tell now whether Hongyu is just entangled in the red thread held by Yu Lao, or whether he really has other thoughts about Duan Muguiu, but Hongyu is free here and can leave at any time if he wants. Okay, she nodded. There is always a banquet in the world. I will prepare a carriage, a fast horse, and some banknotes for you tomorrow morning. If you need anything else, Hongyu will go to Nanji. Call Ling Chuan for the ticket number and ask him to prepare it for you. Thank you, Your Majesty the Queen. Hongyu said. Congratulations to Your Majesty the Queen and Your Majesty the Imperial Consort on their wedding. May Your Majesty have a son soon and grow old together with the one you love, never leaving. Duan Muguiu looked at him expressionlessly, turned around and walked out of Changming Palace. Hongyu followed up with a bang. Chu Qinghuang looked through the window at the backs of the two people leaving, and frowned slightly. I am afraid that no one in the world lives more freely and freely than Hongyu. He is carefree all day long. It seems that he has not lost his childlike innocence, but in fact live your life more freely than anyone else. He likes Duan Muguiu. Fukang frowned, thinking this was an incredible thing. I don't know. Chu Qinghuang shook his head. Whether he and Duan Muguiu are successful or not, I hope he can be as free and casual as ever and don't get hurt. Fukang hummed. She has changed a lot in the past 2 years. Chu Qinghuang knew who he was talking about and said calmly, have you ever hated her? Hatred. Fukang was startled, then slowly shook his head. Shadow guards don't have emotions and desires, so naturally they don't have hatred. The fate of the shadow guards is very similar. No matter which master they follow, they can only obey orders. They have no own ideas and preferences, and have no qualifications to resist fate. If you fail the mission, you will be sentenced to death. If you are killed during the execution of the mission, if you die protecting your master, or if you are tortured to death, the word death is inevitable in the end. The only difference lies in dying first or dying later, and whether death is painful or not. Fukang turned to look at her and raised the corners of his lips slightly. If being abused by her can help me meet Nuan Nuan, then if there is a next life, I will still be willing to be abused by her once. Chu Qing Huang reached out and grabbed his ears. I think you really deserve a beating. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 542. Fukang really deserves a beating. However, the only person who can beat him now is Her Majesty the Queen, and Fukang is happy to be beaten by Her Majesty. But Chu Qing Huang prefers to pamper him. Even if being beaten is a hobby, Chu Qing Huang doesn't like to use such hobbies too much, not to mention that now that the two have married and officially become a legitimate couple, some hobbies are no longer appropriate. What Fukang needs is calmness, sublimation of temperament, and more imperial husband style after years of precipitation, rather than petty training and blushing heartbeats. The most important thing is that Chu Qing Huang is pregnant. For the sake of her own and Fukang's health, and for the sake of the child in her belly, all behaviors that challenge Fukang's self-control are unacceptable. Duan Muwu and Hongyu left early the next morning. How will their fate be in the future, and whether they will really confirm the red thread tied by Yu Lao, probably only they know. Her Majesty the Queen and the Emperor's husband got up very early. There is a rule of serving tea the day after the wedding. Although this rule is usually omitted for the Emperor, Her Majesty's situation is different and cannot be omitted. Rongyu and Nan 11 are not only Her Majesty's parents, but also the Emperor's master and mistress. They are in the imperial city, so they have to serve this cup of tea. Of course, the cup of tea for the retired emperor is also indispensable. In addition, the emperor of the Great Zhou has not left yet, the princess of Shu is also there, and the heavyweights such as the war king of Dongling, the prime minister, and the general are all gathered in the other courtyard. It is conceivable how lively the tea-serving scene will be today. Her Majesty's carriage stopped outside the other courtyard, and 2 rows of maids welcomed the emperor. Fukang got out of the car and held Chu Qing Huang down from the car. Be careful. Chu Qing Huang stood firmly on the ground with both feet, and said calmly, I feel like a useless person now. Don't say that to yourself. Fukang pursed his lips and looked at her dissatisfiedly. Say something nice on a happy day. Good luck. You also believe in this? Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. I should have let Hongyu be your master earlier. Fukang raised his lips. He will never have the chance to be my master in this life. The two walked into the gate of the other courtyard and arrived at the main hall. Chu Qing Huang raised his hand and signaled, Yuan Bao, you take people to wait outside, I don't need you to serve today. Yes. The main hall was huge. In addition to the main seat, the left and right sides were also full of people. Chu Qing Huang and Fukang appeared in everyone's sight, and immediately received a pair of burning eyes. Chu Qing Huang's mouth twitched, standing at the door of the hall, his eyes swept over one by one, and clearly saw an expression called waiting to see a good show on their faces. Today, Fukang and I came here to serve tea. What are all the other irrelevant people doing here? I don't agree with what your majesty said. Xiejin was the first to protest. Who is the irrelevant person? Sir Xie, is it? Chu Qing Huang looked back at him. We are serving tea, why are you joining in the fun? Your majesty is wrong. Xian Yuanyao smiled and said, Xiejin has prepared a great gift for the emperor. Without him, today's tea ceremony will be much less fun. Chu Qing Huang was silent, Tea ceremony. Just serve tea, what kind of ceremony is needed? This is the first time she heard of it. Your Majesty is the ruler of a country. This tea ceremony must be different from the usual tea ceremony, otherwise it will not show that your Majesty is different. Ye Ching Cheng followed and said, I believe that the gift prepared by Lord Xie should also be unique and will not disappoint your Majesty. Chu Qing Huang walked to the center of the main hall and looked at Rong Yu. Father, don't care and let them bully your direct disciple. Rong Yu said indifferently, you don't know what happened yet, how do you know it's bullying? Chu Qing Huang was silent for a moment and was speechless. Fu Kang squeezed her hand, don't worry, I can do it. Before serving tea, accept the gift first, Xie Jin said, turning around and ordering, bring the things over. After a while, 5 pretty maids walked in from outside the hall one by one. Each of the 5 people held a wooden tray in their hands. In each tray was a small bowl with a white background and celadone patterns, and there were liquids of various colors in the small bowls. The maid holding the tray had a strange expression on her face. She looked at the bowl on the tray silently, as if she was looking at poison. The 5 flavors of life are sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty. Xie Jin smiled faintly, let the emperor taste it. As soon as the voice fell, Chu Qing Huang understood instantly, you want to embarrass Fu Kang with this trick. What kind of suffering has Fu Kang not suffered in the dark chamber during those years? However, Her Majesty the Queen was not vague when it came to protecting her husband. Fu Kang is in poor health and had stomach problems. I finally had someone take care of him. If he relapses due to stimulation, my request is not high. Uncle Xie, just give him 10 bowls like this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 543. Your Majesty the Queen is not cute like this. Xian Yuanyao frowned, it is said that a married daughter throws away the water. You are marrying the royal husband back home, why are you still focused on others? Chu Qing Huang said calmly, who is the outsider? To Uncle Yao, Uncle Xie is the outsider? To my mother, my father is the outsider. Xian Yuanyao was speechless for a moment, and then realized that he was no match for his little niece, so he silently picked up the teacup, muttered it's really not cute and shut up. This thing is just a form. Xie Jin looked at the tray in the maid's hand and said in a leisurely voice, I'm not cruel enough to make your dear husband sick. The amount is not big, let him try it. No one else spoke. Even Nan 11 remained silent. Chu Qing Huang understood that for the sake of her pregnancy, her father and the elders did not make things difficult for her and allowed them to get married smoothly. However, the successful marriage did not mean that they made it easy. It's over. Well. The Supreme Emperor finally spoke, feeling that it would be better to protect his daughter. Qing Huang is the emperor, and it is normal for her to favor a side husband, but at the same time, Qing Huang is a daughter and is pregnant. It's reasonable, and Fu Kang shouldn't be blamed at this time. What he said was so reasonable. Qing Huang glanced at him and suddenly felt that the Supreme Emperor was the most kind-hearted. But it's useless to be kind. In today's battle, the weight of his words was so weak that it could be completely ignored. The Emperor's words are wrong, Mr. Xie said in a leisurely tone, the pregnancy is a matter between the two of them, and no one said it shouldn't be done. Tea is a ceremony, and there are still procedures that should be followed. Ritual, the Supreme Emperor frowned, do other people also have this ceremony when they get married? Xie Jin nodded, most of them are. Some are tasted by the groom when welcoming the bride, and some are tasted by the new son-in-law after returning home. In short, that's all. The emperor then also kept silent. He used to be an emperor. Except for the prince's marriage, he didn't know much about other people's marriage ceremonies. Besides, Even if Ziki didn't have the ceremony, what if Dongling had one? Moreover, those present today are all distinguished guests from Dongling, Shu, and the great Zhou dynasty. He, as the supreme emperor, is not very important, so if he said it, it would be as if he did not say it. Besides, the supreme emperor picked up the teacup, glanced at Fukang, and secretly said that it was Fukang they were in trouble for, not Qing Huang. It didn't matter, men have thick skin and rough flesh, and they should go through hardships to become talented. Fukang Chu Qing Huang turned to look at Fukang. It seems that today is a test for us. It's okay. Fukang's lips raised slightly. This test is nothing, I'm fine. Chu Qing Huang nodded, half of you and half of me. Ah. Fukang shook his head quickly, no, you are pregnant. Let unborn children taste the 5 flavors of the world in advance. Chu Qing Huang's tone became calmer, this will help grow. Fukang pursed his lips and looked at her, shaking his head resolutely, no. Are you kidding me? Others drank tea and watched the excitement, but they didn't understand what Her Majesty the Queen meant. Want to share it together? Even if they all agree, Fukang has to be willing. And if Fukang really dares to be willing, with so many people here today, he will have to shed his skin even if he doesn't die. Ginger is old and spicy. No matter how majestic and domineering Her Majesty the Queen is, she has not eaten salt for so many years. Fukang turned to look at the maids and picked up the small bowl on the first tray. The liquid inside was black and smelled sour, probably vinegar. Wait a minute. Xiejin raised his eyes and looked at Fukang. Have you had breakfast before leaving the palace? Chu Qing Huang was about to speak, but saw Fukang already nodding, eat a little. She raised her forehead, why is this child so honest? That's no problem, Xiejin said, let's get started. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 544. Fukang put down the vinegar and chose a bowl of red liquid first. This should be chili peppers. Chu Qing Huang frowned, can you eat spicy food? Chu Qing Huang herself doesn't like spicy food very much, and the food in the palace is mostly light. Although Fukang eats with her, they rarely eat heavy food in the past 2 years. Fukang was born as a shadow guard and is not picky about food. In particular, Her Majesty the Queen gave him mostly mild and nourishing food to take care of his body. So when she suddenly saw this bowl of chili water, Chu Qing Huang frowned subconsciously. Okay, Fukang nodded, picked up the bowl and brought it to his mouth. He first tasted it lightly. There was no other strange taste except spicy, so he drank it all in one gulp. The empty bowl was put back on the tray, and Fukang looked okay. Chu Qing Huang was suspicious, not spicy. Fukang said honestly, it's a little spicy, but only a little bit, not very spicy. Chu Qing Huang turned to look at Xiejin, who sighed, Your Majesty's expression is really sad. I just said that it's not a big deal, just a little ceremony. Your Majesty doesn't trust me. Chu Qing Huang curled her lips slightly. He made things difficult for Fukang in front of her, and still expected her to trust him. Besides, who doesn't know that Dongling's Prime Minister Xie is as cunning as a fox, cruel and ruthless? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Fukang picked up the second bowl. The green juice smelled bitter, but he didn't know what it was yet. He took a sip, and the bitter taste instantly spread throughout his mouth. He regretted not drinking it all in one gulp. How good would it be to swallow it in one gulp? Your Majesty was looking at him, and Fukang endured the bitter taste and calmly raised his head to drink it in one gulp. In fact, the amount was not much, and as a man, one gulp would be enough. But the juice was so bitter that he pursed his lips tightly and frowned slightly, trying not to show anything strange in front of Chu Qing Huang. It was really too bitter. What is this? Chu Qing Huang frowned and asked when she saw that his expression was wrong. Bitter melon juice, Xiejin said, it clears away heat and detoxifies, reduces dryness and relieves fire, and is good for the body. Chu Qinghuang's mouth twitched and she had nothing to say. What could she say? It was just bitter melon juice, not poison, and she had to thank him for being so considerate and not adding coptis root to the bitter melon juice. The third bowl was vinegar, well, it was okay. The fourth bowl was salt water, not much salt, it was okay. The fifth bowl was sugar water, sweet. Bitter first, sweet later. Fu Kang drank bowl after bowl, and tasted the 5 flavors of the world without changing his expression. It's okay, he commented objectively, what Lord Xie said is true. The portion was not large, and the taste was not very strong, within an acceptable range. Chu Qinghuang heard this and nodded slowly. No wonder his father and mother acted like nothing happened, it seems they have passed the test. After tasting the 5 flavors of the world, the next step is to offer tea, and no one will embarrass them. The maid came with a tray and a mat. The first cup of tea was offered to the emperor first, and no one present had any objection to this. After all, he was Chu Qinghuang's nominal father, and the matter of taking over the body involved fate, so it was impossible to make it public. But even if he didn't know, others would give him due respect. Besides, the things he did for Chu Qinghuang were based on the fact that this person was his daughter, and the country of Ziki also belonged to Chu Qinghuang. After taking over someone's daughter's body, he should continue to treat him as a father and be filial. The emperor was filled with emotion. Although the princes would go to the palace to pay respects after their marriage, it was not important for the emperor to offer tea or not when he got married. After all, they were all the kings of a country, and their status was so noble, so why did they need to follow the rules of ordinary subjects? But this feeling was actually quite good. Even if they get married, they are still his children. The emperor took the teacup, took a sip, and handed a red envelope to Chu Qinghuang. Thank you, father. The emperor took Fu Kang's tea again, took a sip, and handed him a red envelope. After thinking for a while, he said, Qinghuang has a bad temper. You need to be more tolerant. Fu Kang was silent for a moment. Your Majesty has a good temper and is very gentle. The emperor. He really wanted Fu Kang to stop lying with his eyes open. It was true that Qinghuang was excellent in all aspects, but with her temper, no one except Fu Kang dared to say that she had a good temper and was very gentle. But it was a big day, forget it, these were not important. Others lowered their heads and drank tea, just pretending not to hear. Chu Qinghuang stood up, walked to Ranjia with Fu Kang, knelt down, turned around and took the tea from the maid's tray, and handed it to Nangzi first. Mother, please have some tea. Nangzi took the teacup, and Qinghuang took another cup of tea and presented it to Ranjia. Father, please have some tea. Ranjia took the teacup and sipped it, and he and Nangzi each took a red envelope and handed it to Qinghuang. Thank you, father, thank you, mother. Fu Kang followed suit and took a cup of tea and handed it to Ranjia. Master, please have some tea. Chu Qinghuang turned around and corrected, the address should be changed. Fu Kang was silent, lowered his head, and held it in for a long time before speaking. Father-in-law, please have some tea. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 545. Wrong, you didn't make it difficult for him. He drank tea and handed him an account book. Calculate how much time you still owe. Fu Kang froze, silently took his own account book, opened it and looked at it, lowered his eyebrows and said nothing. He has already married Nuan, so he shouldn't have to go back to Canyon Mountain to learn skills, right? Why did the master show him this? The emperor, who was sitting on the side drinking tea, looked at the scene and couldn't help wondering. Fu Kang was very good at calling his father-in-law, but shouldn't he, the emperor, be the real father-in-law? Could it be that Fu Kang was afraid of him and didn't dare to regard him as his father-in-law? Fu Kang Chu Ching Huang tilted his head. There is still a cup of tea to be served. Fu Kang came back to his senses, quickly put the account book in his arms, reached out to take the teacup from the tray, and respectfully handed it to Nan 11, Master's wife, mother-in-law, please have tea. Be good. Nan 11 smiled, reached out and touched his head, then took the teacup and sipped it, and gave him a red envelope. The guests sitting on both sides suddenly realized. Why did Rong Yu not have any intention of making things difficult for the wolf cub when his precious daughter was taken away by the wolf cub? It turned out that it was the mother-in-law who protected her. Rong Zhan sat on the chair, thinking sourly that his status as a biological son was almost not as high as that of a son-in-law who was half a son. Could it be true that the mother-in-law was more satisfied with her son-in-law the more she looked at him? After serving tea, the wedding ceremony was truly over and all the procedures were completed. Sit down and take a rest, Nan 11 said in a gentle and calm voice. Since you are pregnant, don't work too hard in the future. Fu Kang should worry more about the important affairs of the court. He is still young and needs experience. If there is anything you don't understand, you can just point it out from the side, and you don't have to do everything yourself. Chu Ching Huang nodded. I know. We have been here for quite a while and plan to leave tomorrow. Nan 11 smiled. So many people gathered here, it's quite lively, right? When we all leave Ziki, don't you think it will be lonely? It will definitely be lonely, but Her Majesty the Queen probably likes this kind of loneliness, Xie Jin said casually. Too many people will affect the couple's relationship, and from time to time someone will be ignorant and embarrass her husband. Although Her Majesty the Queen doesn't say it, she may hate us in her heart. Sir Xie, you are wrong, Ye Ching Cheng corrected him slowly. So far, only Sir Xie will embarrass the husband from time to time. This princess and Yun Ting was honest and did nothing. Apart from sending generous gifts, we did not cause any trouble to Her Majesty the Queen. Xie Jing glanced at her. Really? Ye Ching Cheng said calmly. So even if Her Majesty wants to hate, she will only hate Lord Xie and will not vent her anger on others. Generous gifts, Xian Yuanyao was slightly surprised. Are the gifts sent by Shu very heavy? Why didn't I see them? Ye Ching Cheng said calmly, you came late, and the gifts from Shu were stored early, so the general naturally couldn't see them. Xian Yuanyao said, speaking of gifts, Dongling has put a lot of thought into it. In addition to gold, silver, jewelry, jade, silk, and satin, my emperor also ordered the special selection of 20 beautiful boys, which is enough to express Dongling's sincerity. Ye Qingqing's expression was subtle, and then he replied unyieldingly, if Her Majesty really wants beautiful boys, there are many handsome men in Shu. I can arrange some for Her Majesty after I go back. The emperor held the teacup and suddenly felt that the atmosphere seemed to be a little wrong. Fu Kang raised his eyes to look at Ye Ching Cheng, lowered his eyes and said calmly, if Shu has good shadow guards, you can send more of them over. Ziki's secret cabinet is planning to make some rectifications and reforms recently, and it just happens to be short of manpower. Fu Kang is right, Chu Ching Huang said casually. Dongling has idle manpower, which can be sent to Ziki, but the premise is to send some docile and obedient ones. I am not interested in playing the taming game. Why not? I think it's good to tame a few beautiful boys when I have nothing to do. Beautiful boys are pleasing to the eye and can kill time. Xie Jing curled his lips. It can also add a lot of fun to life. Nan 11 held his forehead. Xie Jing has grown a lot in these years, but why hasn't his temperament changed at all? So Uncle Xie is still obsessed with taming beautiful boys. Chu Ching Huang looked at Xian Yuanyao. Uncle Yao has no idea about this. Xian Yuanyao didn't have any idea, he just talked about it. He's not that bold. The two have been together for so many years, and there is still some trust. Besides, in front of so many people, they, an old couple, were really embarrassed to flirt openly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 546. In that case, Chu Qing Huang smiled, turned to look at Rong Zhan, who had been silent. Second brother, after returning to Dongling, tell my eldest brother that Lord Xie is an honest official, calm, resourceful, and loves the people like his own children. He is a rare good official and can be entrusted with important tasks. Rong Zhan nodded, okay, I will convey it truthfully. Entrust important tasks. Xian Yuanyao frowned. Xie Jin is now a powerful prime minister. He has many things to do and is busy like a spinning top almost every day. How can he be entrusted with important tasks? He didn't dare to say it. If this level is not enough to entrust important tasks, then he can only push all the things that the emperor should do to him. But in this way, Xie Jin will really become a powerful figure in the court. I'm afraid that all the civil and military officials in the court will have to wonder who is sitting on the throne. Your Majesty is really unlovable. Xie Jin sighed, everyone present is an elder, Your Majesty should be a little more humble. Xie Jin said this, but in his heart he was thinking, if it weren't for his master and mistress here, he could make Fu Kang and Nuan surrender with just a few words, and he still had more tricks to use. Finally, there was such a legitimate opportunity to make things difficult for the groom. But with those two big Buddhas sitting there, he had to be a little cautious even when speaking. It was really rare to be humiliated. Uncle Xie, it's meaningless to say this. Chu Qing Huang was calm, I also meant well, and I said a few good words for you in front of the eldest brother to promote harmony between the monarch and his subjects. Uncle Xie should thank me. Xie Jin couldn't help but sigh again. Okay. Even if he was good at talking, it was not good to argue with a child at such an old age, not to mention that in today's scene, there was no room for him to play. Since the tea ceremony is over, shouldn't we do something formal? Xie Jin stood up and looked at Fu Kang's face, let's have a fight on the training ground. Fu Kang's martial arts are definitely better than Uncle Xie's, there is no doubt about that, but due to the rule of respecting the old and loving the young, Fu Kang would never dare to hurt Uncle Xie, so he would inevitably be restricted. Chu Qing Huang smiled faintly, so I think Uncle Xie should find someone of the same generation to fight with, such as father. Xie Jin was silent for a moment. Father hasn't formally fought with others for many years. It's a good opportunity to have a good fight. Chu Qing Huang said, I'll be responsible for providing the venue. Don't stop until you have a good fight. Xie Jin turned his head and glanced at Xian Yuanyao. Xian Yuanyao touched his nose, as if he suddenly remembered something, since there is nothing to do, let's go out for a walk. Isn't the baby in Her Majesty's belly about to be born? Let's go buy some children's clothes, shoes, toys, by the way, for Her Majesty, understand the people's sentiments and see if there are any cases of people being robbed on the street. As soon as this was said, Xie Jin obviously agreed very much. Yao Yao reminded me that no matter whether the queen is pregnant with a little prince or a little princess, we have to prepare gifts in advance, otherwise I am afraid that there will be no time to come and give gifts when the baby is born. As he said this, he bowed in the direction of the main seat, but the words of farewell were said to everyone, everyone sit down, we will take our leave first. After speaking, he glanced at Xian Yuanyao, turned around and left the main hall very elegantly and calmly. His back was slender and thin, and his demeanor was outstanding, almost no less than when he was young. The handsome middle-aged uncle, with a steep character, did not lose the title of the first powerful minister in Dongling. Xian Yuanyao followed suit and said goodbye, turned around and left with Xie Jin. Although the regent king and queen of Dongling have abdicated for many years, their majesty is still there. Ye Cheng praised sincerely, 100 years later, the legend about the regent king will still be circulated in this world. The emperor heard this and nodded subconsciously. This is true. Yunting and I will go out for a walk. Ye Cheng said goodbye tactfully and turned to look at the emperor. I wonder if the emperor can take us around. Of course. The emperor was more than happy to do so. He had wanted to go out a long time ago. He felt a huge pressure sitting here. Unfortunately, Qing Huang was his daughter. Qing Huang had not returned to the palace yet, so he was embarrassed to take the initiative to leave. After Ye Cheng said this, it was natural for him to get up and say goodbye. Qing Huang, you stay here and talk to the regent for a while, and return to the palace earlier later. Don't stay outside for too long. It's not safe. Qing Huang hummed, as if to agree. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 547. The emperor and Ye Cheng and his wife also left. So only Rong Yu and Nan 11, Chu Qing Huang and Fu Kang, the emperor of the great Zhou Rong Chuxiu, and Rong Zhan, who was regretting not leaving with Xie Jin, were left in the hall. Cousin Chu Qing Huang looked at Rong Chuxiu, who had not said much. Is the great Zhou doing well now? Rong Chuxiu nodded, yes, it's pretty good. Thank you for your concern, little cousin. It is indeed a little cousin, she is too young. His son is nearly 30 years old, and he still has such a young cousin. Rong Chuxiu's mood is quite complicated. Just like when they were in the Great Zhou, all of their princes were adults, but the regent uncle was younger than them, but he still held great power and had brilliant military exploits, which made people jealous. The feeling is similar. The most important thing is that Rong Chuxiu found that this little cousin was just like the uncle back then. She was very capable at a young age and was simply favored by God. The alliance between the Great Zhou and the Western Qi, and the victory over the northern frontier, is something worth celebrating. Chu Qing Huang said, holding up the teacup at hand, I will use tea instead of wine to toast my cousin. Rong Chuxiu quickly held up the teacup, let's celebrate together. As expected, like fathers, like mothers. This sentence is probably true. Rong Chuxiu has been thinking about it these days. Now the world is a place where 4 countries are in a tripartite relationship. Although the emperor's uncle has long abdicated and does not care about politics, the fact is that the 4 countries are under his control. The emperor of Dongling is his son, the emperor of Western Qi is his daughter, and the emperor of the Great Zhou is his nephew. Although Shu is a little different, it is actually similar at present. Even if the countries will not coexist peacefully like they do now in 100 years, the emperor's uncle has really lived a brilliant life. There is only one emperor like him in the history of emperors and generals. Rong Chuxiu sighed. If such a man had not been obsessed with love affairs, the Great Zhou would have dominated the world by now, and the emperor's uncle would be the greatest ruler of the world. Rong Chuxiu is actually a relatively open-minded person, but he still feels a little regretful occasionally. He always feels that the emperor's uncle has missed an opportunity to leave a name for eternity. What did you think of, cousin? Chu Qing Huang saw his complicated expression and said casually, why do you look so regretful? Rong Chuxiu came back to his senses and shook his head quickly, nothing. Regret that my father couldn't unify the world. Rong Chuxiu was shocked and looked at Chu Qing Huang in disbelief. I guessed. Chu Qing Huang smiled, it seems that I guessed right. Rong Chuxiu was speechless for a moment. I think even if my father couldn't unify the world, he would have no regrets in this life. Rong Zhan said, my father is content with having a mother, not to mention that he has personally raised 3 outstanding children. There is no second person in the world who can compare to my father. This is true. However, facts are facts, and it cannot be denied that this sentence has some flattery. So Rong Yu looked over, how old are you this year? Rong Zhan was stunned, I. Don't you plan to get married in this life? Rong Zhan's scalp tingled, and he stood up and hesitated for a long time. My royal brother has an heir, so it's not a big problem whether my son gets married or not. Your elder brother and sister are married, and you are the only one left. Nan 11 sighed, Zhan, your father may pay special attention to you in the future. Rong Zhan felt that life was hopeless when he heard this. He didn't need his father's special attention. Really, his father should give more love to his sister and brother-in-law. These two are still young, and they have children before they figured it out. By the way, Rong Zhan reacted quickly and said seriously, if my sister's child inherits the dullness of the Ziki royal family, I think it will take more care of the father. The child should be carefully taught from a young age. As long as the right method is used, a rotten wood can be carved into a beautiful jade. Chu Qing Huang. Fu Kang. Rong Chuxia was silent for a moment, turned his head to look at Rong Yu, and then looked at Rong Zhan. He wanted to say something, but felt that it seemed inappropriate to say anything. In all these years, you haven't met a girl who suits your heart. Nan 11 frowned, there are so many girls in Dongling. At worst, go to Dezhou to find one, or Shu Kingdom. Your father and I are very open-minded. We don't have any special requirements for the women you like. As long as you really like them, it's fine. Rong Zhan lowered his eyes and was silent for a moment, and slowly shook his head, no. Nan 11 was speechless. Her son just didn't meet a favorite, what can she do? Force him to marry anyone. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 548. Nan 11 is an open-minded mother. She will not force her son to do something he doesn't like, nor will she force him to marry a girl she doesn't like. This is not only bad for him, but also unfair to other girls. But people in their 30s can't always be single like this. I'll give you another half a year. Nan 11 gave the ultimatum gently, if you can't find your sweetheart within half a year, let your royal brother choose a concubine for you. Rong Zhan's expression turned serious, marriage is all about fate and cannot be forced. We didn't force you to do anything, Nan 11 said calmly, but after so many years, your relationship is still blank. I'm afraid it's a bit uncertain to wait until fate by yourself. Rong Zhan was silent. This matter is settled, Nan 11 said, your father and I are going back to Dongling. After the new year and the beginning of spring, I hope I can help you arrange your marriage. Rong Zhan sighed deeply. Okay, he'll try his best. If things in the military camp have delayed important events in your life, then put your military training aside for the time being. There is no war to fight at the moment anyway, and we don't care about this year and a half. I really don't care about this year and a half. Dongling has a strong military force. Rong Zhan and Xian Yuanyao are both generals, and they have trained many young and promising generals in the past 2 years. Even if Rong Zhan takes a few years off and occasionally takes time to visit the military camp, it will not affect the overall situation. So Rong Zhan didn't even have a reason to refuse. Besides, when his father is around, his mother has to listen to everything he says. How dare he try to refute her? Chu Qing Huang stayed in the other courtyard and had lunch with his father and mother. In the afternoon, the men went to the study to discuss matters, while the mother and daughter went for a walk in the garden. Time flies so fast, decades are fleeting. Nan 11 looked at the autumn scenery in the garden with a gentle and calm smile. Your father seemed majestic and respected by everyone in his life, but in fact he was really, it's quite tiring, there's a lot of planning, and all aspects have to be taken into consideration. All of his men are unique talents, and it's not easy to conquer them, and it takes a lot of effort. Chu Qing Huang nodded slowly. Humans are all made of flesh and blood, and no matter how powerful they are not as powerful as the heavens. She has always known that her father is powerful, but there must be a huge price to pay for his power. Even those who are favored by God cannot sit back and enjoy the benefits. Everyone only saw how powerful her father was and how invincible he was, but no one knew what he had experienced. Even she, the daughter, actually didn't know much about it. But she knew that no matter how powerful a person was, there was a limit. Humans were not gods after all. However, her intuition told her that it was a secret that belonged to her father and mother, and other people did not need to know. So even if she had doubts in her mind, she had never asked them in these years. After experiencing so much, in middle age, I understand more and more that what people really want is actually only known best to you. Nan 11 turned to look at her daughter. Life is short, just live happily and smoothly, there is no need to add unhappiness to yourself. Necessary annoyance. Chu Qing Huang nodded, I know. In the eyes of many people, Fu Kang is not worthy of my daughter. He is of low status, dull and dull. He is not a person who is good at dancing and coaxing people. He is not as talented as a noble man, who is proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. But he can make my daughter happy, and be sure that he will never abandon my daughter in this life. That's enough. Nan 11 smiled, only you know what kind of person suits you. The corners of Chu Qing Huang's lips raised slightly. I already have the most noble status and own the world. No one can give me something more valuable than the country. So whether it is a noble son from a famous family or a shadow guard with a background like Fu Kang, it's all the same to me. So all she needs is a man who she likes and is loyal to him, and nothing else matters. Moreover, Fu Kang has been working hard to be worthy of her. What else is there to fault? Actually, I'm quite surprised that Fu Kang can be accepted by both his father and mother. Chu Qing Huang said truthfully. In addition to learning some skills, the biggest reason why I asked Fu Kang to become my father's teacher was to let my father Wang and his mother will be able to accept him more easily after they have the opportunity to get to know him. Nan 11 smiled, that kid Fu Kang is very distressing. Well, I noticed him because of my heartache in the first place. Chu Qing Huang smiled lightly. Falling at first sight comes from lust. My feelings for him probably stem from my heartache at the beginning. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 549. Nan 11 was silent. From the initial heartache? Who would feel sorry for an insignificant person if they are not relatives? Besides, Nuanuan is not a soft-hearted girl. So their fate was actually destined from the beginning. Nan 11 is a person who has lived two lives. She particularly believes in destiny and has its own arrangements. She also believes in the reincarnation of cause and effect and makes good use of good rewards. She is a woman without ambition, but during the years when she was queen of Dongling, they worked hard for the peace of the world, worked for the welfare of the people, and accumulated blessings for their children. Now her son is the emperor of Dongling, and her daughter is the queen of Ziki. Nan 11 does not hope that they will be famous for generations, but only hopes that they can carry out their political affairs in their positions, so that the people of all countries can live and work in peace and contentment, and the world is peaceful. This also brings blessings to themselves and their children. Peace, success, and a healthy life are a mother's greatest wish for her children. Don't worry, mother, I know what I am doing and what I will do in the future. Chu Qing Huang broke the silence. Sitting on the throne for one day, I will do my duty and work hard to make Ziki prosperous, let the world's rivers and seas be clear, and let the people live and work in peace and contentment. After a pause, one day I feel tired and don't want to be the queen anymore, so I will pass the throne to my daughter. Then I will learn from my father and mother to enjoy life, and I will travel to every state and city in the world with Fu Kang, see the beautiful mountains and rivers of Kyushu, understand the sentiments of the people, and do things that benefit the country and the people. When you get older, you can sit on a recliner and look back on your life, and you will feel that these decades have been in vain. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. You can see so far at such a young age. Have you even thought about life after old age? Didn't my mother just say that decades actually go by very quickly and go by in the blink of an eye? Chu Ching Huang said with a faint smile. Besides, birth, old age, illness and death are inevitable processes in life, and everyone has to face them. Yes. Nan 11 hummed. You want to pass the throne to your daughter. I have this idea for the time being, Chu Ching Huang said. Now that the four kingdoms are in power, only Ziki is the queen. I think this can be passed down, and we can even establish a rule. In the future, every emperor of Ziki must be the queen, and only the princess, only then can he be qualified to inherit the throne, so that the ministers in the court who belittle women all day long will be ordered by women. Nan 11 laughed. Isn't this inappropriate? Why do I sound a little motivated? Chu Ching Huang shook his head. I'm not acting on impulse. I have seriously thought about the feasibility. But you have to know that women are weak after all, and the power of emperors cannot be controlled by ordinary people, Nan 11 said sternly. Which of those ministers in the court is not an old fox in the city? They are obedient now because you acted vigorously and resolutely before. They all have scruples, but in fact, every generation of emperors almost kills people when they come to the throne. Whether it is to eliminate dissidents or to establish prestige, it cannot be denied that the power of many powerful officials has become so powerful that even the emperors are afraid. Chu Ching Huang was silent for a moment. Mother, what you mean is that women are soft-hearted and will not be the opponent of those old foxes. This is just one aspect. There is also the fact that being an emperor is very tiring and stressful, Nan 11 said. Of course, I am not against your idea. I just want you to think carefully and be fully prepared. Chu Ching Huang hummed. I understand what mother means. In fact, I just want to improve the status of women. I even thought about allowing women to take scientific examinations and become officials in the court. Although this plan was initially implemented, there will be some difficulties, but what worries me the most is that if the prince succeeds me, then even if I give some privileges to women now, such privileges will be revoked in the future, and all my efforts will be in vain. If you really want to improve the status of women in a system where men are superior to women, the wisest decision is to let Ziki be ruled by the queen. Only when it is passed down from generation to generation can men slowly accept the fact that women's status has been improved, and the world's ideas will change little by little. After all, it will take a long enough time to change the deep-rooted concepts and cognitions that have been thousands of years old. It is impossible to do it in 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, or 2. Your idea is a good one, Nan 11 nodded. If you really think about it carefully, you can do it boldly, but do everything step by step and don't act too hastily. Chu Ching Huang nodded. I understand. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 550. In the evening, Chu Ching Huang and Fu Kang said goodbye to their parents and elders and headed back to the palace. Father and mother will leave early tomorrow morning, and they specifically told us not to see them off. Chu Ching Huang sat in the carriage, leaning her head on Fu Kang's shoulder, and she was so cute. Sometimes I really envy my father and mother's carefreeness. They can go wherever they want. There is no place in the world that they can't go. Fu Kang tilted his head and kissed her on the face. When we have time in the future, we will also go around. Chu Ching Huang closed her eyes and said in a tired voice, I think so too. Tired, Fu Kang reached out and picked her up, letting her sit on his lap, and held her in his arms. Go to sleep. Chu Ching Huang opened her eyes, took a look at her current posture, smiled slightly, but didn't say anything, and closed her eyes again to sleep. The carriage arrived at the palace gate, and Chu Xuanyi led the imperial guards to clear the way. The carriage drove directly into the palace gate and went straight to Changming Palace. Arriving at Changming Palace, Fu Kang carried Chu Qinghuang down from the car and walked into the bedroom. His movements were extremely gentle, fearing that he would disturb her rest. Go and ask the imperial physician to come over. Yes. Putting Chu Qinghuang on the bed, Fu Kang looked down at her peaceful sleeping face. The more he looked, the more fascinated he became. He couldn't help but bend down and kiss her forehead. Kissing her forehead alone was not enough, so he couldn't help but kiss her cheeks and lips. Then he found that the more he kissed, the more he wanted to kiss her. He simply couldn't stop. I wanted to have a good sleep, but how can I sleep if you keep kissing me like this? Chu Qinghuang opened her eyes and looked at him. I haven't been able to enjoy the lovemaking these 2 days. Are you feeling pent up? Fu Kang's handsome face turned red, and he said shyly, I didn't have so many thoughts, but Nuan had to remind me. He just wanted to kiss her. Chu Qinghuang sneered, just bear with it for 2 more days. It will be better after 3 months. I'll have to bear it for the sake of the child for the time being. Risking pleasure is not a good idea. Fu Kang pursed his lips slightly. Nuan is very bad. I am bad. Chu Qinghuang raised an eyebrow. You are so bold. Fu Kang touched her forehead. My self-control is very poor now. Nuan can't remind me often. So, it's still my fault, Chu Qinghuang said faintly. In that case, we will sleep in separate rooms from today, and you go back to your own palace. Fu Kang would not agree. I don't have a palace. Who said that? If you don't believe it, call Yuan Bao to ask. Fu Kang said seriously, I don't have one. If Nuan insists on sleeping separately from me, I will go to the Dark Pavilion Punishment Hall to spend the night. Hey! This man is really bold, he dared to threaten her. Chu Qinghuang closed her eyes and went to sleep. Then go, write me a review after sleeping in the punishment hall for a night, and present it to me tomorrow morning. Fu Kang. Nuan doesn't love him anymore. I suddenly remembered a sentence I heard somewhere before, that people don't cherish people once they are in my hands. Is Nuan the same? Nuan. Fu Kang held it in for a long time before speaking aggrievedly. Is it that what you can't get is the best? Chu Qinghuang was silent, but couldn't help revealing a smile at the corner of his mouth. He opened his eyes and looked at Fu Kang's face full of resentment. He couldn't help but stretch out his hand and rub his face fiercely, only to rub his handsome face with clear contours out of shape. What you get is the best. What do I need him for those I don't like? Fu Kang was instantly flattered, pursed his lips and said, then will I still sleep in the Dark Pavilion Punishment Hall tonight? Isn't it up to you? Chu Qinghuang sat up and leaned against the head of the bed. If you want to go, I probably can't stop you. Fu Kang couldn't help but want to curl his lips again. Your Majesty, Yuan Bao's voice sounded at the right time. The imperial physician is here. Fu Kang stood up straight, and instantly returned to his taciturn appearance. He turned to look at the imperial physician who came in, stepped back without saying a word, and took a handkerchief to pad Chu Qinghuang's outstretched wrist. The imperial physician bowed and greeted, and began to feel the pulse of Her Majesty. The pulse is normal, and the child is healthy, the imperial physician pondered, but Her Majesty had a wedding ceremony yesterday, and she left the palace for a day today. She may feel a little tired and sleepy. These are all normal reactions. Just take a good rest. Don't worry too much. Fu Kang nodded. How has Your Majesty been eating these 2 days? The imperial physician asked. Can you still eat meat? Fu Kang shook his head. Your Majesty only eats light food. It is better to have a reasonable combination of meat and vegetables, the imperial physician said, but don't be too anxious. Let the imperial kitchen prepare some nutritious food for the time being. Wait and see, after 4 months, the symptoms should be better.